As I'm filming this video, it is officially New Year's Eve, but I'm probably not going to do much for New Year's Eve. I mean, I did get invited to a party um, for friends, but I'm not big on going to parties, and it feels more like a cross between them being like family and being like my parents' friends. So it feels it's boring when I do go to visit. I mean, I love these people, and they're very sweet and wonderful. Like they're the couple that they have given me books in the past, and they're like third grandparents to me. But it's just whenever I go there, I feel like I'm just sitting there bored, and they have two granddaughters that are like little kids, and I'm every time I go there, I'm worried that they're gonna want me to be like, Jackie, come watch TV with us, come play with us, and it's like I don't want to. And then I also don't like doing stuff like that when I have to go to work the next day. Not that I have to go up super early, but to me, in all honesty, it's not fun. It's not the most fun for me. And so I would rather stay at home, watch TV, watch movie, maybe have a glass of wine, because despite the way I look, I am old enough to drink wine. But probably if we have any Moscato left, because that's the only wine I really like is the sweet one. Moscato and Sangria, that's the only wine I really like. Because to me personally, I think alcohol is overrated. I mean, also, although some of it is good, and I could potentially get drunk or at least tipsy. Like, that's the only thing. I've never been drunk before. I've been tipsy. And hopefully it will stay that way. But I'll probably do that and watch. And I have now, thanks to my best friend, I have Buffy. All 7 seasons, so I can watch that. So I can do a Buffy marathon if I want. But first today, I'm going to do a little bit of reading and, of course, filming videos. I might do 2. I don't know yet. But, so I thought I would do a video where this is close to as negative as I'm going to get on this channel. I think I've done a few other negative videos, like in reviews. I've gotten a little salty, but I mean, compared to some people, I'm nice. I mean, and I'm not trying to, say that as in, oh, I think I'm so nice, I'm so sweet. I mean, as in, I'm not very negative with my reviews. I mean, I might be like, oh, this book was a little long, or I wish the chapters weren't so long. Well, more like I wish the chapters weren't so long. Not necessarily that the book is too long. Because I don't mind reading long books, it's just they take me, again, a long time, and like, sometimes when I read longer books, I can't sit there and read a longer book, like, stick with that longer book. Like, I'm reading The Stand right now, and I'm by Stephen King, and I'm already thinking about another book that I want to start reading and take a break from The Stand. I mean, I love it, don't get me wrong. I mean, just because I take breaks doesn't mean I don't love them. These books is just, like, either they're not action-packed right now, or, which is funny, because I'm not big on action movies, or at least I don't like, I like fantasy action in a fantasy movie. Like, in, I watch Supernatural, and the fight scenes and all that kind of stuff. I like that kind of action. But if there isn't a lot going on and you're just introducing the characters, even if I do like it, sometimes I get a little restless and I want to read something a little more thrilling. Or there's books that I feel like I've neglected, which apparently I'm still struggling with that. But so I decided, as this is, like I said, this is as negative as I'm gonna get. And I'm going to talk about books that are more, like, books that I'm just, like, about, like, very meh, that I wasn't, like, or at least I wasn't in love with them, like, I don't hate them, but there are some books on here that I hated, and then there are some books that I remember being meh about, but I don't remember, it's been so long, so maybe they will be books that I need to, like, borrow from the library, or there are books that, I don't remember, but I just don't feel the urge to read them. I'm just not, and of course, I know a lot of people will probably tell me, oh, you should give them a chance, maybe you'll actually love them, but ain't nobody got time for that. And I don't have the shelf space, you know? Yes, I can get them from the library, but even then, I'm not gonna, it's gonna, like, unless they're not very long books, and even then, even if they're not long, I have so many of my books, my current collection here that I have not read that I'm actually more interested and more excited about. Oh, I guess I should I do have a new, I totally forgot about the one I just DNF yesterday, that I decided to DNF yesterday. Well, let me just start with that one. Okay, so the book I DNF'd yesterday was The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. Actually, I guess I could show you, because I still have it, I haven't gotten rid of it yet. But what I usually do now, these last couple of years, is I've been donating, because the Givens bookstore is an used bookstore, so it takes donated books. So that's what I've been doing with books I'm just like, or books I think that even if I really did enjoy them, I'm not going to read it again. Like, I almost did that with Heartless. I almost did that with Heartless. But then I decided, looking at it now, I'm like, oh, I love this book. I can't get rid of it. But, I mean, the thing is, though, my sister always has told me in the past, that think of it not as getting rid of a book, but think of it as well, actually, I think she was applying this more to clothes. Well, no, actually, no, it was books. And think of it as you're giving the book to someone that will appreciate it, someone who will love it just as much as you do. You're not getting rid of them. You're giving to someone, you're giving it to someone that will love it just as much, or love it more than you did. Like, and that's what I always tell my grandma, because she kind of has that problem with clothes. She can't seem to get rid of her clothes, even if she doesn't wear them. So we always try to encourage her to donate them. And she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't always want to do that. Sometimes she also argues the fact that I wanted to give to someone that I definitely know will love them. And if you donate it, I guess she's thinking, I won't know if these people will appreciate it. And some of her stuff is pricey, like fancy, like from a name brand or something. So I guess she's thinking, how will, if I donate it, how do I know these people will appreciate it? Which is silly, because of course they'll appreciate it. Maybe I'm totally wrong about that, her thinking that way, but, concerning how many times she tries to push it on people, her friends, and, give it to her friends and give it to us, the family. That's the only thing I can think of why she's doing it. But anyway, we're not talking about clothes here. We're not going to get too much more personal about family. So I started reading it, and I know the risk of reading the older classics, like the classics like Victorian literature, it's not necessarily going to be, it's going to be slow moving and character driven, and it's risky. Unless you really have the patience and interest in that kind of book, classics might not be for you. And you shouldn't feel pressure to read them. Because I hate it when I feel the pressure to read a classic. Like, I always feel pressure to read Shakespeare, or read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I'm just not interested. Like, I have attempted the Fellowship of the Ring quite a few times, and it was hard for me to get into. I'm sorry, I know that's blasphemous and sinful, but it's how I feel. So, and that's the thing about classics. You don't know if you're gonna, have the patience to read something and enjoy it enough that you're willing to read through boring, tedious stuff. And for me, unfortunately, this book, I wasn't, of course, in my defense, I guess I could, try again, because at the time when I was reading it, it was around Christmas, and there was a lot going on. Family was here, and I was having to stop it, and every 5 minutes, when I would attempt to read, I would have to stop it every 5 minutes, because, my sister and her and her husband and their boys, who are 1.5 and 3.5. Actually, it's so funny. They're born on the same month, just a few years apart, but they were both born in July, which is really so funny. It's such a funny coincidence. But yeah, so I was, and the younger one, the 1.5-year-old, he's now at that age where he's grabbing onto everything and touching everything, and he's so curious. And his older brother was not like that. His older brother wasn't, I mean, yeah, we had to watch out for him and make sure he didn't, run somewhere he wasn't supposed to. But he wasn't as bad. He wasn't as curious as his younger brother is. So I was constantly having, and I didn't want to be responsible for if he got hurt or something, and I didn't want to have to be told off for not paying attention to him. So and when she had the older one first, I had been told off once that, yes, I know you want to read your book or watch TV or get on the computer or whatever, but when I need your help, you gotta help me, kind of thing. And so I've learned from that mistake. And luckily, nothing serious ever happened to Harrison. That's the older one. And this was it was an exhausting, and I'm always even more cautious, even more paying attention to them as much as possible. So it was kind of hard to read. And the Stand is a little bit easier to read because the writing style is very, it's modern. It's not as descriptive and wordy and not as slow moving. So I couldn't continue. I had to DNF it. And, I think I'm gonna donate it. Like I said, maybe if I start it now when there isn't so many distractions and I don't have to worry about paying attention to someone and I can just focus on the book itself. But I just have no urge, no desire to read it. And I shouldn't, as I said, I'm on Goodreads. I did a little explanation because I said one time in a video I watched recently that I don't like it when people don't explain why they didn't like a book. Or they don't give, and sometimes I've caught myself doing that. So now, every time even when I DNF a book, I always try to explain, because I don't want to be called out for saying that it bothers me when other people don't, and then not doing it myself. So I explained why, and what I said was, that you shouldn't feel obligated to read. Don't read a book out of obligation. Read it because you want to read it. Because you have the desire to read. Not because... And I was only reading Portrait of a Lady because I had it for a long time. Even before we moved here. And I was feeling like, okay, this is the book I need to read. Because I've neglected it. And it wasn't a bad story. I mean, it was definitely an interesting story. And of course, classic writing, is going to be not perfect, but it's going to be pretty good. So the writing is good, and the story was somewhat interesting, but it was very tedious. So that's why I chose to DNF that book. Okay, let's see. In all these books, I don't keep books just because, just so I can talk about them on here, on my channel, because, of course, this is also books that I've gotten rid of over the years that I already got rid of before I even had my channel. So I didn't know people kept their books that they didn't, even if they didn't like them or didn't love them, because, the cover is really beautiful, or they just want to be able to talk about them on BookTube, to say why they didn't like it, or to remind them that, okay, this is a bad book. I don't have the space for that, and I don't know if I'll ever get another shelf. I probably won't. Or I won't get another shelf until I'm one day not living with my parents. So all these books I don't have anymore. Or I've just gotten from the library. And I'm not going to go over all these because I just realized I have a lot of books on here. Let me just real quick go over the ones that I'm just I either don't remember, but I know I didn't feel wowed by them. Okay, so The Longlers, it was an entertaining story. And yes, it was one of Stephen King's short stories. I still actually have that one, but it's in a collection, so of course I still kept the book because, it's Stephen King, and I'll probably like his other ones, but it was okay, it was cute, and I know it's Stephen King. How can you not like one of Stephen King's books? I mean, how dare you? And I'm definitely trying to get more into Stephen King, but this one was just, it was, I mean, it was interesting. It was like, he's basically a group of people on a plane, and I think they went through another dimension or something, if I remember correctly. I don't know. Like I said, again, this is one of those books that it's been a long time since I've read it. And they are basically fighting off these monsters called the Longlers, and when I picture the Longlers, I keep picturing of evil Pac-Man. This one, I think, with teeth. So that one was okay. Pride and Prejudice, I didn't hate. I'm not in love with as much as other people are. Romeo and Juliet, to me, that was just like, they're basically horny teenagers that are like got the hots for each other and think they're in love. I mean, now I'm not saying as a teenager you can't, because I hate it in movies when parents are like, "Oh, you're only 16. How could you understand?" And yes, I think there's aspects of a relationship that as a teenager you can't comprehend, like the responsibilities and the sacrifices you have to make. But I don't think it necessarily means that you don't understand love. But in Romeo and Juliet, the two of them only, like, he had just broken up with another girl, and he was mourning after that girl who basically was like, I don't want you, I have no interest in you, or something. I don't remember why it didn't work out between him and Rosalind. But, and it's like, and they only knew each other for like a couple hours. That's not love. They know nothing about each other. And she's 13 years old, and he's 18. I mean, I know the point of it was the beautiful writing. It's Shakespeare. He has such beautiful writing, and it's about their love the love and the tragedy of it brought these two feuding families together. Like, I get that. I do. I really do. But Romeo and Juliet is not my favorite, of his plays so far. When I've like, of course, I've only read, well, as far as reading goes, I've only read 3, but I've seen stage shows and on-screen versions of some of the other ones. That's why it feels like I read a lot more Shakespeare than I have. And really, I've only read 3. But out of the ones I'm familiar with, Romeo and Juliet is not my favorite. Like, I love Much Ado About Nothing. Hamlet was really cool, which I just read. I'm not as in love with Hamlet as some people are, but I really did love it. Like, just not, like, I'm not in love. I wasn't in love with it. I like Julius Caesar too, although I think with that one it was partly because my teacher and how we read it, like each one of us read a part, and the way we talked about it made it more interesting. A Midsummer's Night's Dream, I've seen both the stage version of that, and I've watched the movie with Kevin Kline and who else is in that? What is her name? I can't remember. She played Catwoman in Batman Returns. Michelle Pfeiffer. And Ally Peel, but that's not her. So Calista Flockhart. Harrison Ford's wife. Anyway, let's see what else. Let's see. I thought Dracula was kind of boring. It was like, all it was journal entries, and I guess it's debatable if I'm gonna like a story, because I love Jane Eyre, which is first person, just like Dracula was. But Dracula was a journal entry, and I agree with Murphy Napier that it was kind of disappointing that we didn't get much Dracula in the story. Like, he didn't come until much later in the story. That was a disappointment. And I know a lot of people have criticisms about Dracula the Undead by Drake Stoker. I don't know how to say his name. He's like the grandnephew of Bram Stoker. And I know a lot of people didn't like it because there's lots of criticisms and there's not a lot of, there's literary problems, like bad writing or something, and it's very sensational, but I personally loved that Dracula the Undead. I thought that was entertaining. I really loved that one, and I love how that one was written. See, The Upside of Unrequited, I didn't hate that book, But I mean, that's one of those books where it's just a genre I'm not into. Like, it was cute, and like, and and actually, my best friend who has a similar body type to the main character, she was saying that she disagreed with their approach. She doesn't feel that way, but I guess you can't. It's hard because everybody has a different experience. Not everybody who has that kind of body type has the same experience. Not every person that is like in that situation has that, as far as body type, has those problems, has those insecurities. Some people are over, in the thicker side are self confident, and I think that, and there's, and people that are insecure approach it differently. I don't think it's kind of hard to, like, if your experience is just limited, could potentially be limited to yours or your group of friends with people that you know or the people you went to high school with. I think it's hard. You can never really fully cover the whole experience because everybody has a different experience with it. And so it was cute, and and the problem is that the main character, I understand that she was insecure and super shy. I get it. And maybe it's partly because she's a teenager and I'm 29 years old. And I just don't like contemporary, but her character, after a while, it was like, I got so annoyed and frustrated with her. And you could say, oh, but she was insecure and so shy and stuff, and I guess I can kind of understand where the character was coming from, because yes, I am like that, and that's the whole reason why I got the book in the first place. But, and like I said, everybody has a different experience. Maybe the author had the experience, or she knew someone who was like her main character. But I did not like the main character in that, whose name I don't even remember. Now, of course, when I don't remember things, that not necessarily defines, oh, I didn't love the book, or I hated it, or something. It's just, so, and this is one of those times where I also didn't, not only do I not remember it that well, but also the main character. But it was cute. Let's see. Les Mis was just boring, I remember, but that's one of those cases where maybe I should reread it, but it's also not a book that I'm going to just get from the library, because that's a long-ass book. I can't get it from the library. I mean, I've told you in the past, I get anxiety and worrisome whenever, to the point where I can't sleep, because I'm feeling guilty knowing that eventually I have to return these books, and I'm always paranoid. What if I don't return them on time? Or, oh, I have to remember to renew these books, and I don't like to have the pressure. And plus, I'm trying to get at least a couple of those books done so that I can get to my own books, because my priority when I get library books is to read the library books. So, yeah, I mean, so I couldn't get that one from the library. I would have to buy that one, And like I said, in some of the ones the longer books I would have to buy if I wanted to try them again, I might not necessarily ever get to them, ever try them again, because it's like, do I want to spend the money on a book that I'm not sure I'm going to absolutely love? But again, like I said, I can't just get a longer book from the library. Let's see. To Kill a Mockingbird, another one that I don't really remember. I read that so young, so maybe that's part of the problem, is I read it at such a young age, but it was kind of boring for me. I get the importance of it, I get the plot and everything, but to me it was just like, I didn't really care, and maybe it was because I was younger, I was too young when I read it. I hated Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. I thought those were boring, but that might change, if I read them now as an adult. But again, I would, of course, the Givens bookstore, it's really cheap, but I still am like, even if it's not that expensive, I'm still like, what if I can only risk getting one or two books right now? I don't want to, use up all my money on a book that I'm just like not sure about, not sure if I'll love or not. Okay, their eyes were watching God. Not about a beautiful writing, beautiful story, but I just wasn't as into it. It was like, I mean, it was beautifully written, and I get the importance of the story. I do. I mean, I just, and it's and I admit that partly because of sometimes it was very confusing, and plus I feel like school kind of ruined some of these books for me, because I just studied them like, um, Sense and Sensibility. I'm trying to go through the books, and I'm just like, they were for me. I don't want to do the ones that are like I'm gonna really passionately talk. I'm gonna get through the other ones first. The Grisha trilogy wasn't bad, but I wasn't in love with it like everybody else. I kind of prefer Six of Crows, and I'm still kind of in the middle of reading the second one. Attempted to read a little bit last night, but then I was starting to fall asleep, so I had to stop. But the Grisha trilogy had a lot of the elements that typical of YA. The reason why YA is such a bad reputation, not everybody loves it. Loves the YA type books, because to me they're not genre. Genre is horror or fantasy or science fiction. Young adult is not, because do you call adult books a genre? Do you call when you refer to a book as an adult book, when you call that a genre? Maybe you would, but for me, I don't think of being like middle grade and adult and young adult as genres. That's not to me, and I don't know how to explain it. I couldn't explain any so don't. Since like the Grisha trilogy was, but like I said, it was It was just not. I just wasn't crazy about it. I mean, it was kind of cool. I like that it was kind of Russia inspired setting, and the magic was kind of cool. Sense and Sensibility. That one, I prefer Pride and Prejudice over that one. That was kind of boring, and I couldn't relate to Marianne, or not just because they were in a different time or they had a different financial situation, but just their personalities. I couldn't relate to them. Me Before You. At the time when I first read it, I liked it, but then thinking back now and having like taken a step back from it, I'm like, and plus the whole thing of I'm always like in the back of my mind I have the whole it's ableist, conflict and everything. But I feel like the character of what is her name? The main character in that one, I could relate to her. Roseblood, I wasn't sure if I should put this one on here, but I had a rating on it, but I feel like I can't rate it because it was a DNF. But again, I think I read this was a book I read earlier this year, and it was just it was too focused on the tragic love story and everything. I know it's based on Phantom of the Opera and everything, but it's kind of boring. And it was, in the main character, again, a situation where she kind of got on my nerves. She complained a lot. And she went to a boarding school in France. She got to go to a boarding school in France. I was like, really? You get to go to France and you don't want to be there? Seriously? It's France. You get to go to a boarding school in France. It's a beautiful country where there's so much art and great food. It's France. Why would you not want to go there? It just, Where the River Ends. I liked that one. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't wow for me. It was a beautiful story, about this guy. His wife is really sick, and we kind of get the story of how him and his wife met, and how he's kind of taking care, and she's sick and dying, and she has one last request, which is to take a trip down the river, and he does that. He gets a raft and gets all the things, a boat or a raft or something, gets all the things he needs, so he can still kind of take care of her, and leads her, and while she's leads her down the river, and a bunch and stuff does. They meet people, and there's a few things that happen, and then he finds out that her father, who didn't like him in the first place, who was also a politician, has sent people after them while he's trying to escort his wife down the river for one last time. It's sweet. It is sad. It's very sad. Just to warn you. The Joining was kind of a retelling of Taming of the Shrew, kind of set in a similar time period, like a medieval kind of setting. And just I didn't like the guy. The guy, I went to punch him sometimes. I did not like him. And of course, it's funny because I have heard some criticisms of Taming of the Shrew, that people don't like it, and it's like, she was forced to change who she was to please everybody in the end. Although I did like 10 Things I Hate About You, which is a modern retelling of it. But yeah, The Joining, it was just okay. I mean, like I said, it's one of those situations where it's a genre I'm just not a big fan of anyway. The Legend trilogy. Okay, well, I'm not gonna talk about that one yet. I'll get to that one in a minute. Okay, so the Bone Clocks was just boring. I was starting to get bored. I mean, I got pretty far into it, but I was bored. And it was kind of confusing at times, if I remember correctly. The Dragon of Handale. That's okay. Not that I'm picky about medieval stories. And sometimes it probably would be easier to watch them than read them. But I was a little disappointed because for a second, when they referenced dragon, I thought on the title, I thought, ooh, this is gonna be fantasy. And it turned just a medieval mystery. No actual dragons, no magic at all. Like, this woman joins a nunnery to go undercover, kind of thing. I think she was trying to recover from an experience she had in a previous book. Which, that's one of those books where they're companion books where you could technically read them as standalones, probably the books in that series, but at the same time, there's little bits and pieces of information that happened in the that connected to a previous book. So, but I think you could still read it as a standalone, if I remember. Daughter of the Pirate King. I did not like Elosa. I did not like Daughter of the Pirate King. I know everybody lots of one of the booktube darlings, if I think it is. I didn't like Elosa. I mean, it was kind of cool, but at the same time, I was a little disappointed. Maybe, and I think, it could potentially be that I'm kind of moving on from young adult books and reading more adult books. Okay, now, let's see. Are there any other books that I'm just like... Oh, His Dark Materials. I really enjoyed the first book, and maybe, potentially, it was because His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. It could be because, it had been a long time since I read The Golden Compass, and I hadn't gotten around to buying the last two books, The Subtle Knife, and I can't remember the other one. But the Subtle Knife and the last one kind of bored me. And I also thought it was weird that these kids, I thought they were like 12 and 13 or something, and then they end up falling in love and everything. And yes, I believe as a teenager, you have some idea of what love is, and you can get into love and stuff, know what love is. Like I said, it bothers me when adults say, oh, you don't understand love. Like, again, yes, there's aspects of a relationship, but that's not the same thing as, that doesn't mean you don't know love. But I think at 12 or 13, that's debatable. I think at that age you're just developing hormones, and I don't think you're into the opposite sex unless you're gay. Then it wouldn't be the opposite; it would be the same sex. I don't think you would be. I hope that didn't come out wrong. I hope that didn't come out as insulting or anything, because I don't mean it like that. I don't mean it. I'm just because I'm just saying that, of course, when you're gay, you're not attracted to the opposite sex. I don't mean to, be disrespectful. I hope it doesn't come out that way. But anyway, but like I said, I feel like at that age, you're not gonna really understand it. But I guess because I still think of them as kid. When you're that age, I still think of you as a kid, as someone, as a person, a person as a kid, and it's very weird. And the kids, and spoiler alert, they do have sex because they're in love and everything. And just, to me, it's like, aren't you a little young? I mean, if they were 16, maybe when I admit at age 16 it wouldn't bother me as much, because I think at 16 you are more interested in the idea of losing your virginity and experiencing sex. But I think at 12 or 13 years old, not so much. And maybe they were 13, but it was weird that they all of a sudden, I was totally caught off guard, and I just kind of started to lose interest, So, I think that's all the books that I'm just like, that were more like, I guess I can talk about The Miniaturist. The Miniaturist, I kind of was confused by that book. And again, another book that felt very tedious, and I was a little caught off guard by the fact that it turns out that that her husband actually was gay. I didn't expect that, and I don't mean as a bad thing. I just mean as in, like, oh, so that's why. So that's the problem. That's part of the conflict, is that he is actually a gay man, and of course back then they had it even worse. And but also, and I was kind of expecting some magical realism, and I felt like we didn't really get it. I mean, there might have been a slither of it, but again, you only, like I said, you only get a slither. So it was okay. I mean, I keep debating about every time I do use the library, debating about getting them used. Okay, so now let's talk more about the books that I'm just like, I feel more strong dislike for them. Okay, the Legend trilogy was just, okay. So my biggest problem with that is they did the amnesia plot. I hate the amnesia plot. I despise it. And it's partly because, one, it's a cop-out. I feel like everybody does the amnesia plot. It's an easy way to get out of the drama and the complications of a relationship. Oh, let's just erase their memories of it, and then we can start over with it. To me, that's like, what the hell? That is too easy. It's like, that's like such a cop-out. It's like, really? You're gonna cheat and just basically erase the memory of a person? And then on the other hand, I also have a personal issue with, I am not comfortable with the memory, like memory loss stories. As I've said in the past in other videos, I can relate it's a little too close to home for me. But yes, as soon as I heard that they were going in the direction of erasing one of the characters' memories, I was like, no, why? Why are you doing that? It's such a cheat. And plus, I just wasn't as in love with the series anyway. But it just kind of ruined it for me. It just made it worse. I mean, I'm surprised that with Once Upon a Time, because they did that on the show, especially with Belle. They did that, and I mean, I already had issues with the way she was acting anyway. I mean, I was just trying to hold out, and I'm surprised I lasted as long as I did, that I didn't quit right then and there when they did that to her character on the show. So I hate that plot point. I hate that device. I want it gone. I want people to stop using it. That's the one, people talk about that they hate love triangles, or they hate, like, I can't think of what are some of the other ones that people really hate, but I do, but amnesia for me is my equivalent to a love triangle. Everyone hates love triangles, while I hate amnesia plots with a passion, with a fiery passion. And I mean, okay, so next is the Sleeping Beauty trilogy. It's actually by Anne Rice, but it's under a different name. A name I can't pronounce. A-N something. I think it's French. The last name that she came up with. But, and maybe she is French. Maybe there's French in her. But, I hate erotica. I have no interest in erotica. To me, it's like, I will not even consider reading 50 Shades of Grey. Like, I try not to talk about it, but occasionally I bring it up with my friend who did read it, and I'm sure she's thinking, well, how can you criticize it if you never actually read it yourself? In which I always worry about that people will call me out on that, because it's like, but I don't have time for that. And I know people say, well, just because you shouldn't go by other people's opinions until you've read the book yourself and decide if you agree. But oftentimes when I hear other people's criticisms, like opinions, sometimes I think you can know if they talk about things in the book or in a movie. In some cases, where if they talk about things that are in that it's not your thing, then yeah, you can know if you're not gonna like it. But that book, it was even worse because it's sex slavery. It's not just a relationship where a couple is into BDSM. It was sex slavery. It was like the Sleeping Beauty story, a classic fairy tale, one that I grew up with. Or at least the Disney version, something that a lot of people grew up with, and it's a classic, and it means that. And yes, the original fairy tales they are very disturbing at times, and a little creepy and very dark, like the original versions. But this was just too much. It's like the beauty gets rescued by the prince, but turns out he and his mother, the queen, run a sex slave trade, and they basically will rescue princes and princesses and sell them as sex slaves. They will abuse them, and like I said, fine. If you're into BDSM, but even I don't know but even BDS people that are in that kind of relationship, the BDSM relationship, complained about it, just like people complained about the 50 Shades of Grey. And it's not just about how the BDSM, the supposed BDSM stuff, but it was also the writing. In both 50 Shades of Grey and this trilogy, the writing was not good. Apparently, she used the word spank constantly. Like, normally her books, I've read 2 of her books, but one of them I didn't actually finish. Which, actually, I should put that one on the list. The Witching Hour, I did not finish it. But that was partly because I cheated. But that was because I cheated and finally looked at the end. Because that's a pretty thick book. And I was not happy. But granted, I guess that's not really fair because it is a trilogy. So, of course, it's gonna end at a cliffhanger situation. But I think I've been spoiled by young adult books. That's my excuse for why sometimes I struggle with reading the longer books because I'm so spoiled with the young adult books and how they're not that long. They are long. They can be long, but they're not like the length of a Stephen King novel. But yes, I just kept reading. I almost continued with the series because I ended up DNFing. I got halfway through the second, maybe a little bit more than halfway through the second book, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I spend the whole time reading the book and being angry and pissed off and being like, wanting to throw it across the room, and not in a good way. Not in the, not like with Frozen Tides, because when I started Frozen Tides, yeah, I was really frustrated with the characters, but that's in a good way. I was not, but oh my god, the only reason I attempted to continue with it because I wanted to see Beauty escape this horrible, disgusting life. And then, I find out that there is a 4th book that she wrote, and it's basically, all of a sudden, Beauty becomes the person who's dealing out the punishment, and is all oh, well, now people don't have a choice in the matter. And maybe that's a little bit closer to BDSM, but I've heard that people were really disappointed. But people that love the original series were disappointed with this book, with the 4th book. Maybe it's because she toned it down a little bit, or, but it was erotica's just not my thing. First of all, I hate erotica. I'm not comfortable with it. And, if I'm going to have a sexual relationship, I don't want to be in that kind of relationship. I am not interested. I am not into that BDSM type stuff. But like I said, even people that were into BDSM said this book was bad. This trilogy was bad. just, like I said, the whole time when I was reading it, the first books, it pissed me off, and I felt bad because this was a recommendation from a friend in college, but and I don't know if I ever gave it back to her or just got rid of the books, but I just hate it with a fiery passion. Next is the last book that I really hated on here was, like most things were, there's only a few that I actually have a strong opinion on. So this is the last one. The last one that I just absolutely hated was Red Rain by by R.L. Stine. Okay, so I was a fan of the Goosebumps books, and I'm sure there probably aren't, because I have heard that people have read them again as an adult, and they're like, this book is not as good as it was back then, but they're fun. They're like campy books, and I thought about rereading. I haven't got around to it, but if I did decide to, I would get it from the library. I don't even know if our library, I don't know if I've ever actually seen the Goosebumps books at this library, but I think I have seen them at the Gibbons bookstore now. And I think I would love, if Harrison and Daniel aren't too scared, I would love to introduce at that age, because Harrison's a sensitive boy. He's very sensitive. Then I would love when they get to that age level, like the middle school level, like early middle school, then I would like to introduce them to the Goosebumps books. But, so I decided to go ahead and give one of his adult books. Like I saw and this is actually when Borders was still around. That's how long I've had this book. I had it because, I got rid of it. And, and I feel really bad because it was a book that one of my best friends got me. She was like, oh, would you read? I read the back. And she's like, and she wanted to get me a book. I don't know, maybe it was around my birthday or Christmas or something, or she just decided, oh, I want to get you this book. And she got it for me, and I feel really bad. Because first of all, like I said, it took me a long time to get around to it. And actually, it might have been when Books A Million came to pass, because the store didn't change much, in where I used to live. I mean, they still had a similar setup, just a different name on the building. But, so it might have been when BAM was around. But anyway, so I read the back, and it sounded really interesting, but then I started reading it, and, it was a quick read. I mean, it's kind of a thick book, but it still did not take that long. And, oh my god, there's so many things. It read like a Lifetime horror movie. It was so bad, and the little kids got on my nerves. The demon kids, it was like, they reminded me of Oliver Twist. Like a bad version of Oliver Twist. With their accents and everything. They were supposed to be cute and endearing, and it was like, no, they weren't cute and endearing. I mean, maybe if I saw on the screen, but I probably, if this ever this had ever got made into a movie, then I would never watch it. Or I would watch it, I would hate watch it. But, oh my god, it's just, and I was kind of annoyed because the woman's husband, it's like basically the story about this travel writer who goes to South Carolina around hurricane season, nonetheless. And then there's this really bad hurricane that happens, like a lot of flooding and stuff. And then, she ends up after the hurricane happens, and, she's seen all the devastation, she sees these two boys, these British brothers, little boys, and that apparently they lost everything, they lost their parents, so she decides to adopt them. Now, maybe R.L. Stine didn't want to focus too much on showing the adoption process, but it's like she just, we never see her going through the adoption process. And maybe, like I said, maybe R.L. Stine didn't want to put emphasis on that and didn't want to waste time on that part, but it kind of bugged me. It was like, it felt like she just magically was, like, there was no drama there. She was just able to take them home. Like I said, in Arlstein's defense, maybe he didn't want to worry about that because it would be too much trouble, and he just wanted to focus on the horror aspect. Okay, and then another thing that really bugged me was the fact that essentially the woman's husband has an affair with his secretary, a younger woman, and he never got caught. It was always threatened by the two demon boys who were like, "We want our mommy." They were like, they wanted her. They kind of remind me of changelings. Maybe that's what they were. Maybe they're supposed to be changelings. And like, but I was kind of annoyed that he never got caught. Like I don't know. I don't remember if he had full-blown sex with this woman, but I was kind of annoyed that he never got caught. And I almost wanted those two little brats to expose him. And then I had this weird, and then I was really uncomfortable and weirded out by the yeah, they're evil demons, but I was very weirded out by the hypnosis thing. I had weird feelings about it, the whole hypnosis thing that these little kids were doing. And it was written like I said, it was written like a Lifetime movie. It's like, oh my god, the only reason I kept going with it is because it was a quick read, and I just wanted to find out what happened. Because I'm not one of those people who can guess twist. And it did have a twist, of course, because it's a horror movie. What horror movie doesn't have a twist? Which, that was kind of cool. But other people might be like, oh, I could have guessed the twist a mile off. So, there's always, but that wasn't one of my problems. But it might have been other people's, issues with it. I should look. I don't remember if I saw any people's criticism on Goodreads. But I need to look at that after I'm done with this. But, yes, I just hated the book. And I was like, I'm so glad I got rid of it. And maybe other people would actually like it and be entertained by it, but to me, it was just, so annoying. And like I said, I just kept going and everything with it. And plus, at the time, I wasn't big onto DNFs. I've DNF'd a lot more books lately. But, yes, I hated that book. I couldn't stand it, and I wanted to shoot those kids, those two little demon kids. I wanted to get rid of them. I wanted to just do away with them now and end the book there. But yeah, it was very cheesy. It read like a TV movie, like a Lifetime movie, and I hated it. Okay, so those are my books that I was just about, or books that I remember being about it, but I don't remember. But I'm thinking, if I read them now, there's a possibility that I might actually enjoy them. And then there was a few on there that I did hate. I did absolutely hate. So, what are your books that you were just about, or books that you hated? Feel free to share in the comments below. And I hope, as always, you are enjoying your reading. Please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye.